Resume length in 2026. How long should yours actually be? 1 page, 2 pages, or somewhere in between? That's exactly what we're breaking down today. Picture this. It's the night before your application deadline. Your resume looked perfect on 1 page this morning. Now it's spilling onto page 2 with 3 orphan bullets. You try shrinking the font from 10.5 down to 10, then 9.5, then back to 10 because at 9.5 it just looks cramped. Sound familiar? Here's the thing, the 1 page rule you've been following for years? In 2026, it has genuinely changed. Here's the stat that changes everything. 54% of hiring managers today actually prefer 2 page resumes, as long as that second page is genuinely filled with relevant content. Let that sink in. The majority prefer 2 pages. Here's the key insight from modern hiring data. Page count is not a rule, it's a signal. A clean 1 page resume signals self-editing discipline. A clean 2 page resume signals depth without bloat. A messy resume of any length signals a candidate who didn't review their own document one more time before sending. Recruiters care about the signal, not the page count itself. Alright, let's start with the entry-level picture. 0 to 3 years of experience. What's the right call here? For candidates with under 3 years of experience, a tight, well-curated 1 page resume is still your strongest format. Not because of some outdated tradition, but because a single page forces exactly the curating discipline that hiring managers want to see in someone they'll eventually trust to write reports, prioritize tasks, and ship product. Now, there is an exception. Technical entry-level candidates with real substance can push to 2 pages. A new graduate applying for a software engineering role with 12 GitHub repositories demonstrating distinct skills? That candidate can reasonably spill onto a second page. But for the vast majority of entry-level applications, 1 page reads stronger than 2 every single time. Remember this. An entry-level candidate who fills 2 pages is almost always padding high school activities, 3-month internships listed at the same depth as full-time roles, coursework that doesn't separate them from any other candidate. A single page that's genuinely curated will beat a bloated 2-pager in that stack every time. Next up, mid-career candidates. 3 to 10 years of experience. This is where the rules shift significantly, folks. Imagine 3 different resumes landing on a recruiter's desk. First, a 1-pager from a 7-year veteran. It feels compressed, like something's been left out. Second, a bloated 2-pager full of filler. Reads as someone who couldn't edit. Third, a tight, substantive 2-pager with impact on every line. That's the sweet spot. By your 3rd or 4th year, compressing everything onto 1 page starts to hurt rather than help. Here's the discipline shift for mid-career folks. Instead of asking, what can I cut? The question becomes, is everything on this second page worth a recruiter's 7 seconds? If your second page lists a 2014 internship at the same depth as a 2024 senior project, that second page is hurting you. But if your second page contains your most impressive recent project plus relevant certifications and a publications list, that second page is the reason you'll get the interview. So, what actually earns a spot on page 2? 4 things. 1. Substantive bullets with measurable outcomes front-loaded. 2. Technology use team size led the so what of each role. 3. Relevant certifications. 4. Publications or significant projects. If your second page doesn't have at least a few of these, pull it back. Now here's the biggest formal rule change in resume length in years, and it affects anyone applying to federal government jobs. As of September 27, 2025, USA Job introduced a 2-page maximum for resumes under most Title V announcements. This is a massive reversal. For decades, federal applicants were coached to write 3 to 5-page resumes detailing every single responsibility in narrative form. The Office of Personnel Management has now confirmed, anything past page 2 is simply not reviewed. Full stop. This means if you're a federal applicant and you're still using an old-school federal resume template built around 4-page narratives, that template is now actively working against you. The game has changed, and the old playbook will get your content ignored, literally cut off at page 2. Here's the hard truth for federal applicants in 2026. You now need private sector editing discipline applied to your government resume, led with measurable outcomes. Drop responsibilities that don't match the specific announcement, and treat page 2 as a hard wall, not an overflow space. Alright, let's talk about the trap that catches so many people. I call it the 1.5-page problem, and it is genuinely the worst place your resume can land. Think about what this looks like in practice. A resume that fills 1 full page and spills 3 or 4 bullets onto page 2. Print it out, the second page is mostly white space. Open the PDF. A recruiter scrolls past most of page 2 looking for content that simply isn't there. It signals that you couldn't find the stopping point, and that signal lands before they read a single word of your experience. If you're at 1.5 pages, here's your editing checklist to pull back cleanly. First, cut anything older than 10 years that doesn't relate to your target role. Second, compress 2-line bullets to 1 by removing hedge words. Helped to, was responsible for. Third, tighten your margins to about 0.6 inches before you touch the font. Fourth, Only then adjust font size if you still need the space. And if you're pushing the other direction, growing into a real two-pager, add a substantive project description with measurable impact. Expand a thin roll from 1 bullet to 3 with technology and outcome detail. Or surface a certifications and publications block. Either clean decision reads better than hovering at 1.2 pages. Next, let's bust a myth that has been circulating since the early 2010s. Does your ATS, your applicant tracking system, actually penalize two-page resumes? The answer is no, and it was never true of modern systems. Workday, Greenhouse, Lever, ICMS, all of these major ATS platforms parse text and keywords. They don't count pages. The only real ATS formatting pitfall is when graphical resume templates push readable text into images or sidebars that the parser can't read. But here's the key. That is a formatting problem, not a length problem, and it hits one-page resumes just as hard as two-page ones. So, practically speaking, you can confidently extend to 2 pages on the merits of your content. The page 2 penalty is a human hiring decision that kicks in when the second page is padding. It does not exist in the ATS pipeline. Don't let ATS fear compress you into a cramped, unreadable one-pager. Here's the takeaway on ATS. Clean, readable formatting wins above all. A well-structured 2-page resume passes through ATS just as smoothly as a well-structured one-pager. Focus on what you're saying, not on how many pages you're saying it across. Now, let's get really tactical. Because the last mile of resume length editing doesn't happen at the line level or the bullet level, it happens at the character level. Here's how precise you can get. A resume that crosses onto page 2 by 80 words can usually be pulled back by trimming hedge words from existing bullets. A 15% character reduction across your bullets is typically enough to recover a half page of vertical space. And a resume that ends 2/3 of the way down page 2? You can lift it to the bottom edge by adding just 50 to 80 words to a thin section, which reads as a fuller page rather than an obviously short one. Think about setting explicit character targets for each section. For example, keep this role description under 280 characters. Expand this summary to 600 characters. Setting a concrete character window per section turns an abstract page count question into a specific editing target you can actually measure and hit. This is exactly what the PiPi World's word counter is built for. It shows characters with and without spaces, byte count, words, lines, and reading time minutes, all simultaneously. So you can target a specific resume section to a specific character window and nail your page length with real precision. Links in the description. All right, let's zoom out for a second and talk about what resume length actually communicates at a higher level. Here's the meta point that ties everything together. Resume length is the first signal a recruiter receives about you before they read a single bullet. A resume that ends cleanly at the bottom of page 1 or page 2 reads as someone who knows when to stop. A resume that runs 1.2 or 1.5 pages reads as someone who didn't. That first impression is set before a single word of your experience is absorbed. So in 2026, the editing question has fundamentally changed. It's no longer, how do I fit on one page? It's, where does my best content naturally close? Page 1 or page 2? Answer that question honestly. Then edit to that line cleanly. Once that's settled, everything else follows. Let's hit 3 quick frequently asked questions about resume length before we wrap up. Question 1. Should I use a smaller font to fit everything onto one page? Only as a last resort. Start by tightening your margins to about 0.6 inches. Then cut hedge words from your bullets. Then remove anything older than 10 years that doesn't match the target role. Font size is your last lever, not your first, because 9.5 points makes your resume look cramped before a recruiter reads word 1. Question 2. Do federal resume rules still apply in 2026? Yes, but they have completely changed. As of September 27, 2025, USA job caps resumes at 2 pages under most Title V announcements. Old federal resume formats built around 3 to 5 page narratives are now actively misleading candidates. Anything past page 2 is not reviewed. Question 3. How do I know if my second page is actually worth keeping? Ask yourself this. Would every bullet on page 2 earn a recruiter's 7 seconds? If page 2 holds your strongest recent project, relevant certifications, and measurable outcomes, keep it. If it has a 2014 internship listed at the same depth as your current role, cut it. All right, folks, let's bring it home. 3 things to lock in before you close your resume file. Takeaway 1. 0 to 3 years of experience. A tight one-page resume is still your strongest move. Takeaway 2. 3 or more years of relevant experience. 2 clean pages is the new standard, and 54% of hiring managers actively prefer it. Takeaway 3. The 1.5 page trap is the worst outcome possible. Pick a direction, 1 page or 2, and execute it cleanly. Before you send your next application, open your resume and ask one question. Does this end cleanly on page 1 or cleanly on page 2? If the answer is neither, if you're hovering in between, that's your editing signal right there. Fix it before it hits a recruiter's inbox. If you want to get precise about character counts by section, try the PiPi World's word counter. It's free and the link is right in the description below. It'll show you exactly how many characters each section uses, so you can hit your target length with confidence. And drop a comment. Are you a one-pager or a two-pager right now? I genuinely want to know. Thanks for watching, folks. If this helped you think differently about resume length, hit subscribe. We cover practical career and productivity tools every single week. See you in the next one.